Ben Levine posted that this episode would be the beginning of some stuff. And he wasn't kidding. It's the start of the Peridot redemption arc. The Peridemption that so many foretold of has finally entered canonical territory. I've been dreading that Peridot episodes would continue to be silly Hanna-Barbera-style chases, but fortunately no, we're getting both plot progression as well as character progression from Peridot now. The episode starts out feeling legitimately menacing when Steven is kidnapped, as the thought of Steven being isolated for the entire episode's duration is there, and I wasn't sure which direction the episode would take at that point. However, we quickly find out that the ominous triangle is at her wit's end trying to get home, and I felt some genuine sympathy towards Peridot, despite us knowing that Homeworld isn't exactly sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows. Peridot's voice actor did a fantastic job at capturing feelings of exasperation and agony in this scene. Despite Peridot's intent being merely one of self-preservation, within just 1 minute of time and a few very powerful lines, you can't help but feel slightly bad for her. That's some good acting! The wacky movement to Peridot's fingers was awesome in this scene, by the way. Major props to whomever had to think up of how to animate them so expressively. The Crystal Gems finally defeat and capture Peridot in this episode. They finally learned from past mistakes and got their teamwork in functioning order. We find out Peridot is a shorty without her limb enhancers, and the slap fight she has with Steven is rather adorable. Seems like she practically never used her real limbs before with the way she takes glee at the notion that a slap from her hurts, though she does still manage to avoid the Crystal Gems despite running on all fours like a raccoon that can't find the exit out of a house. As for Steven freeing Peridot, I don't think that Steven is primarily concerned about what Peridot has to say. While he does want to know why she's so frightened, he also doesn't feel comfortable with her being trapped away until who knows when. His kind-hearted spirit just wants to reach out to Peridot and make friends with her, as many prior instances have showed us, and that is funneled through the desire of wanting to know what she was trying to say. He tries to protect her even after he has info on the cluster. The gems could just unbubble her in a more convenient location and continue interrogating her there, but Steven would rather she not be hurt at all. Peridot has a couple lines in this episode that seem to allude to things about Homeworld. Her line of,
"You're going to harvest me?"
is interesting, as it implies a large range of possibilities for what Homeworld may do with gems they no longer see fit, or that they want disposed of. Do harvested gems go toward creation of technology, energy, or perhaps even other gems? Who knows, but I'm sure it'll be touched upon more in the future. Peridot's other line consists of calling Garnet a
filthy war machine,
which may possibly allude to Homeworld gems looking at fusion as nothing more than a military-based application, which would be a good reason as to why Garnet takes such offense to that insult. And of course, what is the cluster? Steven actually asks a lot of questions about it, though we have yet to receive much of a response. It's some kind of monster, I presume gigantic in size, incubating inside the Earth that poses a threat to the entire planet. Is it a long-term experiment with unknown effects? Or is it employed as a device to destroy the planet, or perhaps convert the planet to some other form for harvesting purposes or whatnot? One thought I have is that the cluster is created from the remnant shards of the Gem War, but unlike the shard fusions, it is gestating into a new form of existence. Whatever it is, and whatever its intentions are, seems like we might have material for the finale to Season 2. This episode was by far the most fun I've had watching Steven and Peridot interact. She has a lot of resentment for the gems, but she seems to be picking up on Steven's good and sweet nature. Peridot's behavior feels similar to that of an injured and naive animal, and it really makes me question just how old Peridot is. The vibes she gives off, particularly in this episode, seem to allude to her not being immature just due to her personality, but rather because she is a relatively young gem. She also appears incapable of summoning a weapon from her gemstone, which seems to be further evidence that she is rather young. Really, the only gripe I can bring up is that it feels odd for the Crystal Gems to just leave the bathroom unguarded the way they do. Peridot only needs a few seconds to make a break for the outside, but perhaps they think they can easily catch her without her limb enhancements, and that the only way she has out is through the kitchen past all of them? But it seems like they don't even notice Steven going into the bathroom with her. I say this because the alternative is that they don't care, and I can't imagine that's the case. Steven even gives Peridot her mechanical foot, which can easily have some weapons or defensive mechanisms built into it, even if she can't wear it. So it just feels odd that the Crystal Gems are on such low alert in regards to Peridot right away. Yeah, I get that she's stripped of all power and her tough demeanor is supposed to come off as cute and comical, but I still feel the tension and potential threat of her escaping was de-escalated a bit too quickly. As I said though, this was my only complaint to an otherwise great episode. The pacing was good and the jokes were really strong for Steven Universe. Amethyst especially had a lot of lines which made me chuckle, primarily from her great delivery.
Just go in the ocean, bro. Like a fish.
A lot of progress has occurred, but I hope Peridot coming around, if that is indeed where the series is going, and I'd be really surprised if it took another direction at this point, I hope Peridot coming around to the side of the Crystal Gems isn't too rushed or sudden. While on one hand it would get a bit boring if she needed to remain on constant non-stop lockdown, I don't want a sudden 180 in just a few episodes. I'm very curious how the dynamic is going to develop, and I'm eagerly looking forward to future episodes. I hope the Crewniverse finds some ways to surprise us regarding future events with Peridot, and that Steven's kind and loving nature alone isn't enough to win her over.
Now, do you mind moving? I have to use that.
Is this a weapon?